wrestle with this question of, can I live up to everyone's expectations? And that's one of those things I think is a tough question for a lot of us. It might be family expectations or friends or even expectations from ourselves. And the way we're going to look at it today is we're actually going to look at a passage, a story that Jesus tells about two brothers who face expectations and how they deal with it very differently, and yet how we can learn from both of them how we can face the expectations that come up in our lives, and this question of, can I live up to them? And so I was wondering how I was going to share this story with you, because it's a really popular story, but it's also a long story, and so I thought, I can tell it to you, but some of you might kind of zone out if I just try to tell the story. I could paraphrase it, but then I don't think it really does it justice, and so I've actually found something that's the best of both worlds. And it's a video where they actually read the scripture, but you get to watch it as if you were hearing Jesus tell it. And kind of get to visualize it. So we're going to look at that together, and then we're going to figure out what that teaches us about living up to expectations.
Now the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to hear. And the Pharisees and the scribes grumbled, saying, "This man receives sinners and eats with them." So he told them this parable. And he said, there was a man who had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me." And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. And there, he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants." And he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father said to his servants, "Bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. And bring the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this, my son, was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." And they began to celebrate. Now, his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, "Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf, because he has received him back safe and sound." But he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him, but he answered his father, "Look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed a fatted calf for him. And he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad, for this your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found.
So what I think is so great about this story is that it really shows us people who have expectations on two sides, right? I mean, we have these brothers who have expectations as part of being a part of their father's family. They're expected to work for their father. They're expected to respect their father. They live in a community where they're obviously pretty wealthy, so there are expectations about how they treat other people and how they act. And yet what's interesting is that sometimes we respond to those expectations differently. The younger brother rejects them and runs away, and the older brother, he stays and he obeys and abides by all of those expectations. And when it comes to us and the expectations people have of us, sometimes we have both of those feelings. Like, think about your life right now. Where do people expect things of you? Maybe your parents expect things of you. How you're going to do in school, the things you're going to do in life, the fact that you will give them grandkids, either now or some other day in the future. Or maybe you've got expectations around you from boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives. They expect you to treat them in a certain way and do certain things for them. Maybe your expectations come from a boss who wants you to work certain hours and do certain things. Maybe you have expectations from your kids. And the question is, do all those expectations agree? Or sometimes they just seem to conflict, and it's impossible to know if we can actually live up to everyone's expectations. Well, that's what we're going to wrestle with today. Can I live up to everyone's expectations? And if so, how do I do it? And we're going to look at this passage because I think it gives us 4 what I'm going to call solutions to this problem. So if you've got your notes with you, if you open up your program, you'll see notes like this inside of it. You can follow along. If you're the kind of person who likes to write things down, and it helps you stay engaged. But we're going to look at what I call the 4 solutions to this problem. Can I live up to everyone's expectations? And we're just going to jump right into solution number 1, and it's this. It is normal to want to run away. It is normal to want to run away. As we look at that story, we see that the younger brother has these expectations placed upon him, and his gut instinct is to run away from those expectations, to go as far as he can, to basically reject them all. I mean, when he tells his father, Dad, I wish that I could have the inheritance, essentially he's saying, Dad, I wish you were dead. And this is a heavy thing. He's saying, Dad, you would be better off to me dead than alive, and all you are to me is your money. And really, I just want my money right now so I don't have to have anything left to do with it. But what's so interesting is how the father responds to the son. He doesn't call him horrible names. He doesn't say terrible things about him. He doesn't condemn him behind his back. We never actually hear the father say a negative word against the son. It's almost as if the father understands that sometimes that desire to want to run away is natural. We actually see this as well in the movie Despicable Me 3. In this movie, one of the things that people don't talk about a whole lot about this movie is that the minions actually leave Gru. It's one of these moments where they're just fed up with the fact that he doesn't want to be evil anymore, and so they abandon him. Which for them works out pretty well, because when they're evil, they end up in prison, and for them, apparently, that's not that bad of a place. Let's take a look.
Hey! Get that back!
There you go. So sometimes maybe you feel kind of like those minions, like you just want to run away. Like as you enter into the semester, maybe you're thinking about all the pressures you have on you, all how hard the classes are going to be, all the things that people want you to do. Maybe it's your last semester and you're just stressing out over the idea that you're about to go off into the real world and you wish you could just like not go to class and it would all go away. Or maybe you're in a relationship where somebody expects a lot from you and it's just kind of weighing you down and you just want out of that relationship, whether it's a friendship or a dating relationship or something like that. Maybe some of you are a little bit like me and you've got this stress from your kids, right? These expectations that are just so much that if somebody offered you a 2-week vacation in Italy, you would like hop on the plane and figure out childcare later. Like you would get out of here, right? Because sometimes that is just so much. And we just want to run away from it. Well, what the important thing is to know is that that's okay. Right? Like just like the father in the story, God understands that we have this desire, we have this want to run away. And if we're ever going to deal with people's expectations, we have to know that this is a natural inclination, and sometimes it's good to run away from things, and sometimes it's not. And so we have to figure out the tools to be able to make that wise decision. Which actually leads us into the second solution to this, and that's that when you are struggling with people's expectations, when you're trying to figure out, can I live up to everyone's expectations, the next thing you need to do is consider the alternative. So once you've come to this place where you realize you don't always have to go along with everyone's expectations, sometimes it's good to want to run away. You have to be able to make that wise decision, and one of the best ways to do that is to consider all your alternatives in that situation. Which seems common sense, but sometimes can get a little tricky. Like sometimes the situation is obviously easy. You know, like if you think to yourself, if I don't show up to work today, like I resist that expectation, I will lose my job. So it is obvious that I need to do that. Right? And sometimes it's obvious that you should run away. So if I go to work and my boss asks me to embezzle money, then I should obviously run away from that. There will be consequences both ways, but I need to resist that. I need to run away from that. But sometimes the situation is a little more tricky. Like we have a friend who is about 30 years old, and one night she goes out to a party and meets a guy who she really hits it off with. I mean, really, really likes this guy. And they schedule to have coffee, kind of just to get to know each other a little bit better. Well, a couple of days later, she finds out that another friend of hers was at that same party and also was asked to go to coffee by the same guy. Now, it seems like the guy's kind of a player, a little bit skeezy, but if you really think about it, like what he's doing is just saying, I don't really know these people, these girls seem like friendly people, let's just have coffee and see if we really connect. But the friend did not take it that way. The friend gave our friend a difficult choice. She said, look, I know he asked us both out, so I kind of expect that since he asked both of us out, let's keep our friendship by both saying no, both rejecting him. And so now our friend has a difficult choice, right? She has expectations on both sides. She has this friend of hers who says if you go out with him, that's going to ruin our relationship. But then she has this almost expectation of herself on the other side that says if I go out with him, I really think I hit it off. This could be like the person I've been searching for. This could turn out to be true love. And so she wrestles with those expectations. See, sometimes that decision is very difficult, so we need to consider all of our alternatives. And this is what the younger son is dealing with in this story. When he runs out and he kind of ends up out there with pigs and wasting all his money, he is in a tough situation. And let's just look at it again, how bad it describes that situation gets. It says, so the younger son went and he hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. And he longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. And when he came to his senses, he said to himself, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am, starving to death. Multiple times in the story, it refers to his situation as so bad that it is death. Like Jesus says he was like at the point of death. The Father says he was dead and now he's alive. And one of the reasons for that, right, you have to understand how bad the situation was, is that this guy was a Jewish guy in a culture that thought pigs were the most unclean thing in the entire world. So the fact that he's ended up envying pigs is basically a situation where if you not only had a job so bad that you wish you cleaned out porta potties, your job is so bad that you wish you were the porta potty. Like, that's how bad his situation is. He is at the point of death, and he has this really difficult decision. Because on both sides there's expectations. Some people expect him to just accept his choices and accept his fate, whatever that might be, however bad that might be. Others say maybe, go back, ask for your father's forgiveness. You might not be accepted as a son, but at least you can be a servant. So he's got a difficult choice on both sides, and so he has to consider all his options, all of these alternatives, and then head into the next step, which is this. Check your motives. Check your motives. And I want us to watch a clip real quick that shows us about checking our motives. Let's give this a go.
This is unexpected.
Well, you never got to go on a honeymoon, so we made you dinner. It's a luau. We got pineapples and coconuts and that's a whaling. Oh, yay! The soup of the day, Madame and Monsieur. It's coming fresh with Nadia.
Looks so good to even eat. Am I right?
We made it for you.
Good soup. I love the combination of gummy bears and meat.
Alright, so looking at that situation, you gotta ask yourself, why does he eat the soup, right? Is it because he likes the soup? Is it because he thinks the gummy bears and meat are gonna be an amazing combination? I mean, when you think about what a gummy bear really is, they're really not all that different. But why does he do it? He does it because he loves his daughter. He's in that situation that he could be selfish, or he could act out of love. And he checks his motives and he says, my motivation in this moment is to love my daughters, so I'm going to eat this. And that's the same situation we face when we are facing tough decisions and expectations all around us. Is how do we respond to this? Do we respond to it out of selfish desire? We do what we want to do? Do we just respond to it out of blind obedience? Or do we find a way to respond out of love? And that's the situation that we see in this story. Right? We've really talked about the younger brother most of the time. But the older brother is an equally important part of this story. In fact, for Jesus, he might be the most important part of this story because Jesus is telling this story to a group of religious leaders who are very older brother-like. They're very holier than thou. And when we look at this story, we see an older brother who really struggles with expectations himself. Look at the situation of how he responds when he finds out his father's throwing a party for his brother. It says the older brother became angry and refused to go in. And so his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so that I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, notice he doesn't say my brother, he says this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him. The father says, my son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and he's alive again. He was lost, and now he's found. What's so revealing about how the older brother responds here is that the older brother is guilty of the exact same thing the younger brother is. The younger brother looks at his father and he says, Dad, give me my inheritance so I can go spend it. Because all that the father is to him is money. And the older brother looks at the father and says, Father, why did you waste it on this guy? I've slaved away from you. In other words, revealing, Father, I've been obedient to you my whole life because all are to me is your money. All I've been wanting from you the whole time is what you owe me. See, both of them are guilty of the same motive. When they're thinking about why they're obedient to the Father, or why they're disobedient, why they live up to expectations, or why they reject them, it's the same reason. It's not out of love. It's out of selfish desire. And when we get in difficult situations, we have to figure out what is our real motive. Right? When we considered all our options, when we know what the whole situation is, when we realize that we can either go one way or we can go the other, we can accept or we can reject, what are our motives for making that decision? And one of the best tools I've found for answering that question is this. Ask yourself why. 3 times. Ask yourself why 3 times. Let me give you an example of what that looks like. So let's say your parents have incredible expectations for you. Maybe what kind of job you get or what you do with your life or how you act or all these other things. But they have expectations that you will succeed, right? And they put incredible pressure on you. One of the things you could ask yourself is, well, why do they have such high expectations? Maybe the answer to that is, well, they want me to make them proud. Okay, well, why do they want me to make them proud? Well, because they've sacrificed a lot for me. Okay, but why have they sacrificed so much for me? Well, because they didn't get the opportunities I had. So they're trying to give me the opportunities they didn't. So they sacrificed to make that possible. Once you've asked why 3 times, now you're looking at a whole different situation. It's not obeying your parents just because you need to obey them. It's understanding why they're doing this in the first place, understanding the motives behind all of it, which is that your parents want you to respect the sacrifices that you've made. And that creates an entirely different situation for you. Now, obedience in that situation may not necessarily be going into the career field that they want you to go into, or getting the exact grades that they expect, but doing something with your life that shows that you honor all that they've sacrificed for you, because that's what's really behind it. And now your motive isn't just to do it because they said do it. And your motive isn't to rebel just because you want to be selfish. Your motive is to love them. And that's what you have to get to at the end. We need to realize when we have these tough situations, we need to realize that both options are good. It's okay to want to run away. We need to consider all the alternatives. And we need to check our motives and make sure our motives are ones of love. But there's one other thing that we need to do, and this is actually the most important thing. And to reveal this to you, I want to read you one more passage out of the story. This is when the younger son gets back. It says, so he got up and he went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. And he ran to his son. Notice, this isn't a father who's angry. This isn't a father who's waiting for the son to come to him. This is a father who runs to his son, throws his arms around him, and kisses him. And it says, the son said to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. The father said to his servants, quick, bring him the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For the son of mine was dead. He's alive again. He was lost, and now he's found. So they began to celebrate. What this story shows us, what it reveals to us, is the last and most important solution. This problem of living up to everyone's expectations, and that's this. You will always be welcome home. For the past few minutes, we've been wrestling with this question of, can I live up to everyone's expectations? And maybe you've realized it so far, but the very simple answer to that is no. You can't. I've given you some tools for how to figure out the best choice to make, but the truth is, at the end of the day, you have people all around you who expect things of you, and you can't please everyone. You can't live up to everyone's expectations. That pressure on you is too great. And maybe some of you are dealing with that right now. Like you're at a place where you just want to run away from that pressure. You've got people around you who expect things from you, and throughout your life, maybe you've run away from it. Like you've disobeyed your parents. Maybe you've broken people's hearts at times. You've broken off relationships when they got too serious. You skipped class or skipped work because you just didn't want to deal with that pressure. You know what it is to run away. The point of this passage isn't that we run away. point of this passage is that no matter how far we run away, we will always be welcome home. If you haven't sensed it yet, in this story, it's just an analogy for our relationship with God. That the Father in the story represents God, and we represent both of the sons. And sometimes we run away, and sometimes our motives are bad, and sometimes we don't do the right thing. And yet, no matter how far we stray, they want us to know that no matter how much those expectations may weigh on us, we will always be welcome home. No matter how much we might fail to live up to what we think are God's expectations, we will always be welcome home. There will always be love for us in God's house, surrounded by God's family, in the presence of God. The truth is, when you walk into this place, when you walk into this church, we want you to know that this is a place where you are welcome. Where none of those mistakes, none of the stuff that's happened in your past is going to haunt you and keep you. You don't have to live up to those expectations. You don't have to worry about them here. That when you walk into this place, it doesn't matter what kind of grades you get. It doesn't matter what clothes you wear. It doesn't matter what job you have or where you live. When you walk into this place, it doesn't matter who you're dating. It doesn't matter what mistakes you made last semester or if you're in your 8th year before your play. When you walk into this place, it doesn't matter if you don't know how to read the Bible or you're too uncomfortable to pray or you're still struggling with whether or not you really believe in God. This is a place where no matter where you are on that journey, you will always be welcomed into this place, surrounded by these people and loved by this God. And that's something I hope you have the opportunity to hear as you read the story and you go through this message. And it's something I want you to be able to experience as well. One of the things that we believe is really important at Ignite is not just hearing about God's love, but being able to experience that, whether it's going out and serving others or being around others and walking on that faith journey with them. And so as you look at the back of your connection card, I want to direct your attention to a few ways that you might respond to this today. Kind of take a step that allows you to continue that journey and experience that love. One of them is that box in them. I'd like to volunteer to bring a friend to launch on September 24th. And the idea behind that is come continue to hear about this message of God's love. Come continue to experience it in this place. And maybe there's somebody else in your life who you know who's been struggling under expectations. Bring them with you. Let them know, let them hear this message so that they can have their lives impacted as well. But the one that I think is really important today, and the one I want to encourage you to pray about and to think about, is this one that says, it's on the left column under next steps at the bottom. It says, join the Monday night dinner Ignite group. Join the women's Ignite group. And this is an opportunity to be around other people who are also on this journey, to ask questions, to wrestle with the same things they're wrestling with, and know that you're not alone. Like I told you, you can be welcome in this place, even if you're struggling with how much you believe in God. And there are people who are part of Ignite, who are in this room right now, who can tell you they've been on that journey, they know those struggles, help you to understand how they've gone through those things. There are people who know what it's like to have pressure from parents, and pressure from classes, and pressure from being a parent, and things like that. And these groups are a place where you can really experience that and walk that journey with other people and know that you're supported in that. And so I want to encourage you to think about that, to pray about that. And in just a moment, the ushers will bring our offering baskets around. And in addition to the offering that you give here, your connection card of offering yourself to God today, another way that you can give to God today and return back gifts to God is through giving. And Ignite is a place that is supported by the people who are part of it, by people who are beyond us, who help us to do the work we do throughout the city and on the campus, to help the kids in the Park Place community, to have Ignite Pantry, to be able to reach students. And so if you want to take a moment and pull out a giving envelope and just think of a way that you might want to give a little bit back to God today and to help make this sort of thing possible. And there are options on there to be able to give automatically or to give online. If you just want to go onto our website, ignitenorfolk.org/give, you can give there. This is another way that you can kind of return back to God and some of the blessings that God has given to you and help to reach other people and let them hear this message. So we're going to give you a minute to fill that out. Sam's going to sing for us, and then in just a moment our ushers will come and receive our offering.
I'm no longer slave to fear. I am child. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child. You unravel me with a melody, surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemy, till all my fears are gone. 'Cause I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. 'Cause I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. 'Cause I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God.
So one of the things that I think is cool about the movie Despicable Me 3 is if they didn't intend for it to be a parallel to the prodigal son, then they accidentally made it that way. But at the end of the story, the Minions actually come back to group. And without any question, without any frustration or anger, he welcomes them right back in just the same way God welcomes us. So I hope you felt that. I hope you've experienced that today. And we just want to thank you for being here. I actually have one thing to do before we go, and that's I have something to give away. So I got a menu to give away. So the first person who can tell me when our next worship service is. All right, you got it. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Hopefully I'll see you again on September 24th. Or if you're part of the launch team, or want to be a part of the launch team, just let me know. We'll see you before then. But have a great week, and we'll see you soon.